Some people didn't just want peace. They built homes to completely escape the outside world. From remote islands and hidden villages to cliffs, deserts, and impossible heights, these places weren't built by accident. Here's why these people chose isolation over everything else. Are you new in this video? Click subscribe and hit notification bell. So let's get started. Casa do Pinedo, often called the Stone House or Boulder House, is one of the most unusual and isolated homes in the world. Hidden in the Serra de Faf mountains in northern Portugal, this house is literally built between four massive boulders that form its foundation, walls, and roof, making it look almost like a natural part of the landscape. Construction began in 1972 and was completed in 1974 as a private retreat for its owners. At the time, the area was remote and quiet, making it the perfect place to escape the outside world. The house was designed without modern infrastructure like electricity or running water, allowing its inhabitants to live simply and stay connected only to what truly mattered to them: nature, silence, and solitude. Over the decades, photos of Casa do Pinedo spread online, capturing global attention and convincing skeptics that the home was real after debate about its authenticity. Today, it still stands as a symbol of intentional isolation, a place where peace is prized above convenience. While tourists visit the area to see this Flintstone-style stone house, its original purpose was never fame. It was a sanctuary away from the outside world. Adrer Amalal is a unique desert eco-lodge nestled at the edge of the remote Siwa oasis in western Egypt, near the foot of the dramatic White Mountain. What makes this place extraordinary isn't just its location, but the way it was built and experienced. Designed to blend into the barren landscape, the lodge is constructed almost entirely from earth, rock salt, and palm wood, using traditional local building techniques that echo the ancient ways of the Siwa people. Unlike modern hotels, Adrer Amalal deliberately operates with no electricity or modern utilities. At night, the entire complex is softly lit by hundreds of beeswax candles or lanterns under the starry desert sky, creating an ambiance that feels timeless and deeply peaceful. Guests wake up to the breeze through palm groves and the endless desert horizon, far removed from the noise and distraction of urban life. Each of the lodge's rooms is unique, handcrafted with mud bricks, salt blocks, and local materials, furnished with hand-woven rugs and simple organic textiles. The food served here is sourced locally or grown on site, and the rhythms of daily life are dictated by the natural environment: sunrise, sunset, and the silence in between. Reaching Adrer Amalal isn't easy. It lies deep in the desert, hours away from major cities, which is exactly why it was built the way it was, as a sanctuary for those seeking escape, reflection, and reconnection with nature. For many visitors, this hidden gem becomes more than a place to stay. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest luxury is complete detachment from the outside world. Gossadalur is one of the most isolated villages in the world, perched on the edge of the sea atop steep cliffs in the remote Faroe Islands, a North Atlantic archipelago halfway between Iceland and Norway. For centuries, this tiny community was cut off from the rest of civilization, reachable only by a narrow and dangerous mountain trail that wound along steep slopes and roaring waterfalls. For generations, residents lived with limited contact beyond their village, relying on fishing, sheep farming, and each other to survive. Life here was defined by the raw power of nature: relentless winds, pounding waves, and constant mist. In the 1980s and 1990s, Gossadalur's isolation became legendary as one of the most inaccessible places people actually called home. It wasn't until 2004 that Gossadalur was finally connected to the rest of the Faroe Islands by a tunnel through the mountain, a modern lifeline that brought electricity, tourism, and easier travel. Yet even today, with that road finished, the village remains a symbol of isolation and resilience. Its tiny cluster of houses, dramatic landscapes, and sense of seclusion continue to attract adventurers and dreamers who seek a life far from the outside world. For many who visit or learn about Gasadalur, the village stands as a reminder that isolation isn't always about distance from others. Sometimes it's about distance from distraction, noise, and the ordinary demands of life. The house on Elliday Island is often called the most isolated house in the world. Located on a small, uninhabited island off the southern coast of Iceland, this lone white building sits surrounded by nothing but grass, cliffs, and the endless North Atlantic Ocean. There are no roads, no neighbors, no shops, just one structure standing completely alone against nature. For years, rumors spread online claiming the house belonged to a billionaire or a man trying to escape society forever. In reality, the building is owned by the Elliday Hunting Association and is used as a seasonal lodge for puffin hunters. Despite this, the level of isolation remains extreme. The island has no permanent residents, and the only way to reach the house is by boat, followed by a steep climb up the cliff face. There is no electricity grid, no running water system, and no modern infrastructure. Life here depends entirely on preparation, self-sufficiency, and respect for the environment. The silence is overwhelming, broken only by wind, seabirds, and crashing waves. The house on Elliday Island perfectly represents the idea of escaping the outside world. Whether used for hunting or solitude, it stands as a powerful symbol of how far some people are willing to go to disconnect from modern life and live on the very edge of isolation. Tristan da Cunha is widely known as the most remote inhabited archipelago on Earth. Located in the South Atlantic Ocean, it lies thousands of kilometers away from the nearest continents, Africa and South America. There is no airport, no direct flights, and no easy way in or out. The only access is by a long sea journey that can take several days, depending on weather conditions. The main settlement, called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, is home to fewer than 300 people. Life on Tristan da Cunha is defined by isolation, self-reliance, and strong community ties. Residents depend heavily on fishing, farming, and limited supplies, shipped in only a few times a year. Medical care, communication, and travel are all affected by the island's extreme remoteness. In 1961, a volcanic eruption forced the entire population to evacuate to the United Kingdom. However, most residents chose to return just 2 years later, proving how deeply connected they were to their isolated home. For them, the outside world felt more distant than the island itself. Tristan da Cunha exists as a rare example of people choosing to live at the very edge of the world. It represents a life where isolation isn't just a choice. It's a way of survival, identity, and belonging, far removed from the noise and pace of modern civilization. Eremo di San Colombano is a dramatic and isolated hermitage carved directly into a steep rock cliff in northern Italy. Built high above the valley, this ancient structure appears to cling to the mountain itself, making it one of the most extreme places ever chosen for solitude. Reaching the hermitage requires climbing hundreds of steps carved into the rock, a journey that already separates visitors from the outside world. The hermitage dates back over 1,000 years and is traditionally associated with Saint Columbanus, an Irish monk who sought isolation for prayer and spiritual reflection. The location was intentionally chosen for its inaccessibility, silence, and separation from society. Living here meant complete devotion, with no comfort, no crowds, and no connection to everyday life below. Inside the hermitage, space is minimal and simple, reflecting a life focused entirely on faith and solitude. Surrounded by towering cliffs and open air, the site feels suspended between earth and sky. Even today, Eremo di San Colombano remains a powerful symbol of extreme isolation, chosen not for survival or luxury, but for spiritual escape from the outside world. This place shows that long before modern ideas of escaping society, some people willingly removed themselves from the world entirely, choosing silence, faith, and isolation above all else. The Crystal Mill is one of the most photographed and isolated historic structures in the United States. Perched on the edge of a rocky cliff near Marble, Colorado, this small wooden building sits beside a rushing mountain stream, surrounded by steep canyons and rugged wilderness. From a distance, it looks peaceful, but reaching it is anything but easy. Built in 1892 during Colorado's silver mining boom, the Crystal Mill was never actually a grain mill. Instead, it functioned as a powerhouse, using water from the Crystal River to generate compressed air that powered mining equipment nearby. The location was chosen for its strong water flow, even though it meant building in a remote and dangerous place. For decades, miners and workers traveled harsh mountain roads to maintain the mill, especially during freezing winters. Over time, mining activity faded, and the area became nearly abandoned. Today, the Crystal Mill stands alone as a reminder of how people once built structures in extreme isolation, driven by necessity rather than comfort. Now surrounded by silence, mountains, and flowing water, the Crystal Mill represents a different kind of escape from the outside world, one shaped by nature, history, and distance. It shows how isolation can preserve places in time, untouched by modern development. This isolated house stands alone in the middle of the sea, completely cut off from the outside world. With no roads, no neighbors, and nothing but water surrounding it, this kind of home proves that extreme isolation is possible. When someone truly wants to live away from society, nothing is impossible, even choosing a life where silence and distance replace everything else. What can you say about this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Bishop Rock Lighthouse stands on a tiny rock in the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of the Isles of Scilly in England. Surrounded by violent waves and strong winds, it is considered one of the most isolated and dangerous lighthouses ever built. There is no land around it, only open sea in every direction, making it feel completely separated from the outside world. The lighthouse was first built in the mid-1800s to prevent ships from crashing into the rocky waters below. Early versions of the structure were destroyed by storms, forcing engineers to rebuild it stronger and heavier each time. The final stone tower was designed to survive some of the harshest weather conditions in the Atlantic, standing firm where almost nothing else could. For decades, lighthouse keepers lived inside this narrow tower, spending weeks or even months alone at sea. Their lives were defined by isolation, routine, and constant danger. Supplies arrived only by boat, and during storms, keepers were completely cut off from the world. Bishop Rock Lighthouse represents extreme isolation, not chosen for peace or escape, but for duty and survival. It proves that humans have built homes and workplaces in places so remote, they exist on the very edge of the outside world itself. The Chess Pavilion sits high on Mount Huashan, one of the most dangerous and sacred mountains in China. Perched near steep cliffs and narrow paths, this small structure feels almost unreachable, suspended above vast drops and endless clouds. Just getting there requires climbing sharp staircases carved into rock and walking along exposed plank paths where one wrong step could be fatal. Mount Huashan has long been associated with Taoist monks and spiritual seekers who believed isolation brought clarity, discipline, and inner peace. The chess pavilion is said to be a place where monks once played chess as a form of meditation, combining mental focus with extreme physical separation from the outside world. There are no roads, no comfort, and no easy escape at this height. Strong winds, thin air, and sheer cliffs make daily life here unimaginable for most people. Yet structures like this were built intentionally, not for safety or convenience, but to remove every distraction of normal life. The chess pavilion represents one of the most extreme examples of choosing isolation. It proves that some people were willing to climb to impossible heights just to escape society and live closer to silence, discipline, and the edge of the world itself. The Katski Pillar is a towering limestone monolith rising nearly 40 meters above the ground in western Georgia. On top of this narrow rock stands a small church, one of the most isolated religious structures in the world. From below, it looks almost impossible that anyone could live or worship there, completely separated from everyday life. For centuries, the pillar remained abandoned and largely forgotten. In the 1990s, a Georgian monk named Maxim Kavtaradze chose to live on top of the Katski Pillar in near total isolation. He believed that distance from the world would bring spiritual clarity and devotion. Access to the church is only possible by climbing a vertical metal ladder bolted to the rock, a dangerous ascent that few are allowed to make. Life on the pillar is defined by silence, prayer, and discipline. There are no roads, no crowds, and no distractions, only sky, stone, and solitude. Supplies are brought up occasionally, but most of the time, the monk remains alone above the world below. The Katski Pillar represents one of the most extreme examples of choosing isolation. It shows that for some people, escaping the outside world isn't about comfort or distance. It's about complete separation, faith, and living closer to the sky than to society. The Church of St. John in Ranui is a small, historic church located in the Val di Funes Valley in northern Italy, surrounded by open fields and dramatic alpine mountains. Isolated from major towns and roads, the church feels completely removed from the modern world. Its quiet setting and simple structure give it a sense of peace that draws people seeking silence and reflection. Built centuries ago, the church was originally used by local villagers for worship. Over time, as populations shifted and modern life moved elsewhere, places like this became symbols of solitude rather than busy gathering points. Today, the Church of St. John stands almost alone in the valley, with only nature, wind, and distant mountains as its constant companions. The isolation of this place is intentional and powerful. There are no crowds, no city noise, and no distractions, only open land and stillness. While not originally built as a home, the church represents the same desire seen in isolated dwellings around the world: the need to escape the outside world and exist in quiet separation. The Church of St. John in Ranui reminds us that isolation doesn't always mean extreme danger or distance. Sometimes it simply means choosing a place where silence speaks louder than everything else. Paro Taktsang, also known as the Tiger's Nest Monastery, is one of the most breathtaking and isolated religious sites in the world. Clinging to a sheer cliff nearly 900 meters above the Paro Valley in Bhutan, the monastery looks as if it is suspended between the sky and the earth. From below, it appears unreachable, a place deliberately built far from the outside world. According to legend, the Buddhist master Guru Padmasambhava flew to this location on the back of a tiger and meditated in a cave here during the 8th century. Over time, monks built the monastery around this sacred site, choosing extreme height and isolation for spiritual focus and discipline. Reaching Paro Taktsang today requires hours of hiking along steep mountain trails, further separating visitors from everyday life. Life at the monastery is shaped by silence, prayer, and devotion, There are no roads, no crowds, and no modern distractions. The isolation is intentional, meant to remove the noise of the world and bring monks closer to spiritual clarity. Even natural disasters and fires have not erased its importance, as it has been carefully restored and preserved. Parotaksang represents one of the purest forms of escape from the outside world. It shows how isolation can be chosen not for survival or luxury, but for faith, reflection, and a deeper connection beyond modern life. Cliff Haven is a rare kind of home that takes living under a rock literally, because it's built directly into the surrounding red rock formations in remote southeastern Utah. Instead of standing apart from nature, the house is designed to blend into the landscape, almost like it was shaped by the canyon itself. What makes it feel like an escape from the outside world is the setting. It sits on a 12-acre property with wide, wild views over Montezuma Canyon. It's not a neighborhood home. Privacy is the point, with the closest neighbor about a mile away. Cliff Haven is also described as an off-grid getaway, the kind of place where you step away from the noise, the crowds, and the non-stop pace of modern life. And even though the location feels extreme and isolated, the home itself is surprisingly complete. It was listed as having 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, and a large outdoor patio, with even room for expansion. Cliff Haven shows a modern version of isolation, not disappearing into the wilderness with nothing, but building a home so remote and private that the outside world feels like it's a different planet. The floating seahorse villas are some of the most unusual and isolated luxury homes ever built. Located off the coast of Dubai on the World Islands, these villas are surrounded entirely by open sea, with no streets, no sidewalks, and no traditional neighborhood around them. From the outside, they look like floating mansions, but what makes them truly unique is what lies beneath the water. Each floating seahorse villa is designed with 3 levels, including an underwater floor where bedrooms and bathrooms sit below sea level. Large glass walls allow residents to sleep surrounded by marine life, creating the feeling of living inside the ocean itself. Above water, the homes feature private decks, rooftop lounges, and uninterrupted views of the horizon, reinforcing the sense of separation from the outside world. Access to these villas is only possible by boat or private transport, making daily life quiet and secluded. Despite being close to Dubai, the experience feels worlds away from the city's noise and crowds. This isolation is intentional, built for people who want privacy, exclusivity, and distance from everyday society without giving up comfort. The floating seahorse villas represent a modern form of escape. Instead of mountains or cliffs, isolation here is achieved through water, proving that even in the most luxurious settings, some people still choose to live apart from the outside world. From cliffs and islands to deserts and open seas, these homes prove that escaping the outside world isn't just a dream, it's a choice. For some, isolation means peace, purpose, and freedom. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more unbelievable places, and let us know in the comments. Would you live this far away from the world?